Hey everybody, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you know when you're getting new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The Shout Out Show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Mars, host of the SOS and Shout Out Show. I want to welcome you here on a lovely Monday. Hopefully it's a lovely Monday wherever you are. Hope you're having a great day. Order of business, for if you're coming to join the show for the first time, please click the subscribe button, the like button, and we hope that we can give you a quality experience. Better yet, a compelling argument to come back to the show tomorrow or next day or next day or next day, or maybe even tell a friend. That's number one. Number two is for my shout out soldiers, my shout out show soldiers. You know who you are. I can tell you right now. Here they are right now. Sister Reed, shout out soldier. Earth, shout out soldier. Anybody that's a shout out soldier, I'm going to tell you something. I appreciate you. And the reason why I say I appreciate you, because it means that they push me in a certain way creatively to make sure I'm bringing some good talent, some good information, if you will. Today is one of those days. Today is a bit of a history lesson. It's not a eulogy, but it's a bit of a history lesson. Today, I found out that somebody who was iconic in the city of Washington, D.C., iconic like Marion Barry, iconic like Chuck Brown in the Soul Searchers, iconic like go-go music. He was Washington, D.C., and still is. Many ways, he is the one of the unofficial mayors of Washington, D.C. Coach John Thompson. He was the coach of Georgetown basketball for 27 years, brothers and sisters. And he was a homegrown talent. I mean, went to Carroll High School, Archrival High School, my high school, but Carroll High School, left Carroll, played at Providence, played a couple years in the NBA, decided not to continue his career in the NBA because he decided to be a guidance counselor, working with youth, and his basketball acumen was the thing that really pushed this whole thing forward. Let me give some quick shout outs here. Yeah, you are ahead of us. That's what happens when you have shout out soldiers in Australia. And let me see, Dave, Nazim. I don't know Dave, but I do know Nazim. That's a little brother. Man, if you see them, give them a hug for me, man. So I want to talk about, in a very short time, the importance of a man like John Thompson. John Thompson took over at a high school, St. Anthony's High School in Washington, D.C. St. Anthony's was going, a very high prep school, and he turned the basketball program around. And by that virtue, he was awarded the job as coach at Georgetown University, coach of basketball. Now, the interesting thing was their team stunk before that. They were 3-23. Okay, 3-23. They weren't a good team. He took the team and he turned it around. One of the things that John Thompson did as a coach, and this is very, very early, brothers and sisters. When I say early, I mean extremely early. That he essentially revolutionized coaching. I'm going to give a big shout out to Z from Toledo. What's going on? Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. John Thompson, at an early age, in the 70s, brothers and sisters, the early 70s, took a school that was on a hill. It was almost like on an oasis in Washington, D.C. We didn't go there. Black kids did not go to Georgetown. Very few went to Georgetown. If you went to Georgetown and you were black, you were really, really special. Your parents had a lot of money. John Thompson, in his basketball program, in the first couple of years, began to bring in black players. Now, let me tell you why that's important. He began to bring in black players, not so much so they could play basketball. Yes, they played basketball. But he looked at it as an opportunity to give students, young men, particularly young black men, an opportunity, brothers and sisters, to be a part of a higher educational experience. No community college, no. A higher, when you got your degree from Georgetown, it doesn't matter when you play basketball or not. He wanted that for his students, his student athletes, to have access to great education. It may be, I'm pretty sure it is, but it's fairly accurate. He had a graduation rate of 97% of students that stayed in school all 4 years. 97%, brothers and sisters. He was never, and he never had any infractions with the NCAA. He changed the whole platform of college basketball. He protested for the rights of these students. And why am I saying that, brothers and sisters? Why am I saying that? Because he was, before all this Black Lives Matter, he was the original, you better not mess with Black lives. Let me say that again. You got Black Lives Matter, which is, kind of passive. But John Thompson was, you better not mess with Black lives. Even more so, you better not mess with Black children. And in Washington, D.C., and all around the country, we came to love Georgetown University basketball. It represented several things to us. It represented an opportunity to understand that basketball, brothers and sisters, was the journey and not the destination. It was the journey and not the destination. And he turned out and produced incredibly strong young men. Some of them, some of them in there, 4 of them are in the NBA. Dikembe Mutombo, Alonzo Mourning, Allen Iverson, and of course, Patrick Ewing. But the beauty of this man is that he did it in a way where he maintained and he protected the dignity of not only guys on his team, young black men on his team, but he protected the dignity of young black men around the country. He made me, brothers and sisters, want to not go to college. He made me want to graduate. He said one time that it's not enough to get your degree. It's not enough to get your degree. He said the idea is that you have to be an active citizen in what you've learned and how you pass it on to other people. We right now live in a very fragmented society. It looks and feels sometimes like it's 1950, even though I wasn't born in 1950. It looks and feels like sometimes there was no civil rights argument. There was no civil rights movement. It feels that way. But people like John Thompson allowed us to dream. When I first went to school, and I showed up at Universtiy, brothers and sisters, I'm talking about 84, all I could talk about was Georgetown basketball. We had just won a championship, but all I could talk about was Georgetown basketball. Someone remarked, I talked about Georgetown like I got into Georgetown. My grades were so bad, I couldn't even get a tour of Georgetown University. But he made myself, and people like myself, believe that we were entitled to a quality education and that we should seek a quality education. And if we had to play tennis or football or basketball or baseball, he looked at that craft, that skill, if you will, as something to barter with. I will play your game as long as I get this degree. Thus, that percentage of students that graduated from this basketball team, 97% graduation rate, that's real. I think the first person that messed that average up was Allen Iverson. And you know what kind of a horrible career he had in the NBA. But Allen Iverson, I'm going to give him a lot of credit. After his first year of playing basketball for Georgetown, he could have left. Speaking to Coach Thompson, several other people, including my Uncle Reggie, he decided to stay a second season, trusting Mr. Thompson, and he went out to be the number one pick in the draft when he came out. Allen Iverson, on his Hall of Fame speech, looked at him, and people, I want to frame this for you correctly. This is an older black man and a younger black man. An older black man and a younger black man. He looked at John Thompson at the top of his speech, and you know what he said? He said, I'd like to thank Coach Thompson, not John Thompson. I'd like to thank Coach Thompson for saving my life. Let me say it again. He said, I want to thank John Thompson for saving my life. And he saved a lot of lives, directly and indirectly. He was not afraid of anybody. Back in the 80s, one of his players several of his players were rumored to be hanging out with the biggest drug pen on the East Coast, definitely in DC, Rayful Edmonds. And John Thompson, Mr. Thompson, Coach Thompson, put the word out for Rayful Edmonds to come see him. Now, this is a guy who was under federal investigation. He said, come see me. And he sat Mr. Rayful Edmonds down, who was he was a gangster of the gangsters, a killer of the killers. And he told him to leave my players alone. And you know what Rayful Edmonds did? Out of respect and deference for Mr. Thompson and everything he had done for the city of Washington, D.C., he left the players alone. So you're not talking about a fictional character here. We recently lost Chad Boseman with the Black Panther. And I really like that guy. I never met him before. I really like what he stood for. I mean, he persevered under a whole lot of difficult situations and circumstances. But John Thompson, brothers and sisters, is a real life hero. His work, his actions, his vision, his stubbornness at times, his irritability at times, protected and promoted the idea of Black excellence in sports, particularly in basketball. He followed a model that you don't even know about. He played 2 years behind Bill Russell. Bill Russell, in his example, taught John Thompson how to navigate issues of race, productivity, progress, and winning. So I may tell you all sorts of things about Mr. Thompson, but you know what he made me feel like? And a lot of other people feel like. Now, this is in the 80s, brothers and sisters. This is the 80s when they won a championship. It wasn't just Washington, D.C. that put John Thompson on his shoulders. You could go around the country and see people dressed like me right here. I had to pull out the vintage Georgetown hat, Georgetown hoodie. But he made people feel that whatever you're going through, with education and persistence, and I said education, I said college education, I said education and persistence, he made people feel like you could do it. The importance of John Thompson right now is we have so many people telling us what we can't do, what we won't do, what we shouldn't do. But nobody's doing what they need to do. What I love about Coach Thompson was he was not politically correct. In his finest moments, and he had plenty of them, but in his finest moments, in a game against Boston College, a basketball game against Boston College, he pulled his team off the floor in protest. Because now you're hearing about the NBA and stuff like that, players protesting. Hey, brother, I told you about Effa Manley, but I'm going to tell you about John Thompson. He pulled players off the floor. And the reason he did it was something called Proposition 48. And Proposition 48 said that if students were not academically eligible, then they had no access to scholarships. They had no access to financial aid. And he said, you're punishing the student for having low grades, but you're not working with him to further his education. It was a brilliant argument. Now, when you look through the history books, you won't hear about that. You know, LeBron James and Steph Curry and Kawhi Leonard and all of them, they all went through college, except for LeBron James. They all went through this situation, but it was a John Thompson. It was a John Thompson who led the parade for young black men to get their education and to get financial mobility and financial stability. And even with John Thompson, if you didn't go to the pros, and a lot of players didn't go to the pros, but they went into high-functioning jobs. I think one of his players, Michael Jackson, not the singer, played Michael Jackson, he played point guard for them. You may remember Michael Jackson if you watch the old NCAA reels, and you see when Michael Jordan hit the winning shot. Well, at the end of the game, Georgetown had a chance to win it. And Michael Jackson, the point guard, mistook James Worthy, an opposing player, and threw it to him, therefore ending the game. John Thompson, big bad John Thompson, went over to him. You think he would tear him a new one, brothers and sisters. He gave him a hug and let that man cry in his chest. And I'm here to tell y'all, when we lost in '82 to the University of North Carolina, I cried like a newborn. I cried like a newborn because, no offense to John Dean Smith or James Worthy or Michael Jordan or anybody that had on that team, we were black. We were an all-black team from an all-black city, breaking all kinds of stereotypes, and we were going to win with a black coach that taught us about black excellence. That was the thing. And so 2 years later when they beat Houston, I can tell you right now, my heart was through my chest, brothers and sisters. And later on, Nolan Richardson got his title, and he reminded everybody of John Thompson. But John Thompson told everybody this. When he won the championship, he told everybody, I don't want to be listed as, the first black coach to win an NCAA basketball championship. And the reason he said he didn't, he said because there were other black coaches before him that probably could have done it, but they didn't have the opportunity and didn't have the access. They didn't have the opportunity, they didn't have the access. And as we sit here and talk, brothers and sisters, in this crazy election cycle, where are our John Thompsons? Where are our black John Thompsons? Where are our Muslim John Thompsons? Where are our white John Thompson? Where are our Asian John Thompson? Where are our Native American John Thompsons? It's not enough to say Black Lives Matter. You have to stand up and go, don't mess with Black lives. Not over here. You see, the city of Washington, D.C. at that time was predominantly black. Had a lot of problems, a lot of issues. But the one thing that pulled us through at difficult times, upset times, we could always turn on the TV and we could see 6'10" John Thompson with that white towel over his shoulder, barking at the players, barking at the referees. Some things I can't even say because I don't want to. I don't have to worry about the FCC. I don't want to say him. But he demanded a certain excellence. And so if you get anything out of this talk today, anything, outside of understanding how important it is to stand on principle, because he stood on principle. You talk about the media and Trump, no. You need to examine John Thompson. John Thompson protected his players. And nobody got to his players. They used to call it Hoya paranoia. That's what it was. Hoya paranoia. But what the fact of it is, the bigger fact of it is, he knew the America of the time. And he protected a young Patrick Ewing out of Massachusetts who didn't speak well. His English wasn't that great. But now you talk to him, he's an amazing young man. He protected that man. I remember watching a game where people threw banana peels out and said that Patrick Ewing was a monkey. They held up signs. And Mr. Thompson refused to play the game until those people got kicked out. You hear what I'm saying? He refused to play the game or put his players on the court till those people with that disrespect were removed. And sometimes they go, where's our courage? When do we stop being courageous? John Thompson, by all measures, smart man, educated man, but let's be real clear, brothers and sisters. He was not politically correct. And when I say he was not politically correct, it comes from the space of a man who understood that politics were not correct, that politics never benefited him or his people. He was a very wise man. He said in one of his interviews, people think because I got a lot of money and players and things, they think that that's enough for me. And he said that, and he laid the pretext. He goes, neither my father nor my mother could read. He said, but what they had, the work ethic, is the thing that allows me to be successful, and that's what he gave to his players. When I went on Instagram today, I started naming off all the players. Reggie Williams, pro. David Wingate, pro. Alonzo Mourning, pro. Dikembe Mutombo, pro. Patrick Ewing, pro. I just started thinking about all these people. Michael Graham, he won a pro, but he helped win the championship. But you know what the interesting part of it is, brothers and sisters? Allen Iverson, pro. The interesting part of everything I'm telling you is this came from an idea. It came from a place of love. I will explain to you in the briefest detail I can. John Thompson loved Washington, D.C. And John Thompson loved Georgetown. But more than all of that, John Thompson loved black people. Yeah, my man right here. That's right, Jabril played for Golden State. Sleepy Floyd. I can remember a lot of guys on that team. Gene Smith, lockdown defender. Horace Broadnax. We had a whole lot of players, man. We had some heck of a players. But I'm going to say this about Coach Thompson. My uncle knew Coach Thompson. One of my associates, Coach Ed Myers, was on the bench with Coach Thompson when they lost the first championship. Wow. What they always said about Coach Thompson was he was rough and gruff to the point that he just loved his players. I don't think everybody understands fully what I'm saying, just based on the fact that we don't have those kind of people around anymore. Maybe the times don't allow us to develop them, or we just don't have time. Let me give a shout out to Brother Mikhail. How you doing, brother? But I find that when I woke up this morning, I read that thing that he was gone. It made me reflect. And though I didn't go to Georgetown, I went to a Jesuit college, Marquette University. And the fun thing about that, all the way up in Milwaukee, is everybody knew about Coach Thompson. All the black players on our team wish they could have played with Coach Thompson. I mean, I wish I could have played for Coach Thompson, other than the fact that I was probably 2 feet shorter than everybody. But just to be around the man, just to be in his presence, in his shadow, and understand that he had taken a very, very disciplined path to get to where he was something that's always been a part of my heart. Almost the same as Chuck Brown, legend. Almost the same as, oh my gosh, Mayor for Life, Marion Barry, legend. There's something in those type of people that make you breathe a little easier, make you smile a little longer, and make you laugh a little harder. And they make you appreciate with a lot more depth. So I haven't really seen anybody who's a Coach Thompson type of dude. And yeah, my father says, ain't nobody getting out of here alive. I know, Pops. But I ask everybody, take a minute to appreciate folks like this. Just a little bit. If you have people in your life like this, appreciate them. I heard that saying again. Give people their flowers when they're here. No, don't give people flowers. Give them vegetables. Because you can't eat flowers, but you can eat vegetables. And other people can eat vegetables. So for the family of Coach John Thompson, condolences to all the players that played under Coach John Thompson. Condolences. For all the Georgetown ride or diers, condolences. For all the his assistant for academics to help all these brothers pass, condolences. But for everybody else, yes, it's a sad occasion. Am I sad? Yeah. When I got up this morning, I'm not gonna lie, I cried. It's not a thing. I cried when Kobe Bryant passed, and the reason I cried because I felt like the world lost something. I felt like the world lost something. So for this little bit of time, brothers and sisters, it reminds us that we don't have a whole lot of time. Okay? I'm going to ask everybody just to kind of appreciate a little bit. If you can, go on ESPN. Not on ESPN, or go on YouTube and look at some of the old games. He not only revolutionized basketball at Georgetown, he was largely responsible for the success of the Big East, which allowed for even more students and more access and more money for funds and scholarships. See, people think it's all basketball getting the money. No, John Thompson got money from Georgetown University, and he brought in an impressive amount of young students who were black students who normally would not have had access. So it wasn't just the basketball players. And in that model, I present myself. I'm happy to say that I'm a disciple of the John Thompson School of Go Out and Get It Done. I got my bachelor's, my master's, and my PhD. I got a PhD from Go Out and Get It Done from my teacher, Dick Gregory. And while I'll say that, pay close attention and respect and observe the importance of our teachers. I want to give a shout out to Coach Kitchen, Reginald Kitchen. I give a shout out to Big Mama Ishrat Siddiqui. She's in her last days, hours of transition, so I'm going to ask everybody to please make dua for her. But on the other side, life. Appreciate the importance of living a principled existence. Not for yourself, but for those around you. Because that's the way Coach Thompson would have done it. And I'm saying if Coach Thompson would have done it that way, you know what? We could do it that way as well. So brothers and sisters, I wish you well. Hope to see you soon. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Preacher Moss, the Shout Out Show.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your Shout Out Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, next Shout Out Show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from ShOUT. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out ShOUT.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.